But someone in the comments was like, can you name all the starting quarterbacks in 2015? I'm like, oh, that's kind of a fun exercise. So I'm walking my dog, I'm filming. I'm like, who is the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals? And I said like John Skelton, some like random name. Turns out it was freaking Carson Palmer. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what a bad miss on my part. The Arizona Cardinals actually responded to that video and they're like, dude, what's going on? I'm like, that's pretty cool. That was kind of fun.
What was the idea that inspired SimBULL, and what kind of is SimBULL overall?
Best way to describe it is SimBULL is a stock market for sports. So our goal is to create a platform that allows sports fans to invest in shares of their favorite sports teams, just like they'd invest in companies in the stock market, in cryptocurrencies, and NFTs, all that stuff, but really a market designed for sports fans. So on our market right now, you can trade shares of NFL teams, MLB teams, NBA, NHL, and college football. With the goal is we want to create a platform that allows sports fans to profit off their sports knowledge in a more fair way than, typical sports betting, and a really fun way. People are getting into market-based investing. So that's what SimBULL's all about.
I remember when you talked about it originally, you said during the pandemic, you realized all your friends were either sports gambling or they were buying stocks in like businesses that they had never really heard of. I thought that was a really cool combination of like the long-term investing with something you actually know about, because I could name pretty much every NFL team's GM, but I don't think I could name a single CEO out there in the world.
Exactly. So my background's investing. I grew up, I worked in an institutional investing firm designing financial products. So that was always my background, but I've always been a little bit of a degenerate sports gambler. Fantasy sports has always been, my go-to for entertainment. But what I realized during the pandemic is more and more people were starting to invest in the stock market, right? Robinhood blew up the past 5 years, the whole GameStop, AMC craziness. And a bunch of my friends were investing in these companies. I'm like, that's not even like GameStop's not even a company anymore. There's no basis for their stock price. Like, what are you guys doing? They're like, oh, well, there's nothing else to do. This is fun. We can make some money. I'm like, okay, but you know nothing about, investing in companies. What if we gave you a market where you could invest in sports teams? And I started floating around the ideas of some friends are like, yeah, if that existed, that'd be super cool. I know way more about the Chicago Bears than I do about Dogecoin or anything like that. So that's where the foundation came from.
I don't know if you remember this, but the first video I made for you guys was I started a buy or sell series. And I wanted to go through all the teams, just kind of give my analysis on the stock. And the first team I did was the Cincinnati Bengals. They were priced insanely high at the time. And I said, this is a stupid idea. The Bengals are going to be trash this year, all of that. And obviously it paid off for those people. They must have known something that I didn't. But what teams have been moving around the most in the SimBULL market during this like NFL offseason?
Honestly, I'm pulling it up now. The biggest winners, biggest losers at the beginning of the offseason and then end up being the biggest winners, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah.
Tom Brady retires. They go down 30% in like a couple of days because who wants to own a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team with I don't even know who their backup is anymore. Like
I think it was Gabbert. I think it's Gabbert. Yeah.
Blaine Gabbert as the only quarterback on the roster. So they drop. They recover a little bit because people are like, maybe that's too far. Tom Brady announces that he's coming back. They go up 30%. They're up 30% on the month. They're a top 10 team in the NFL once again. So they were a big winner. The Colts actually surprisingly big winner trading for Matt Ryan. So, who knows if it's going to work out. The Colts have been in this quarterback carousel with, bringing in Phillip Rivers and then bringing in Carson Wentz and now Matt Ryan. But the roster is pretty good. And if Matt Ryan can be competent, there could be something there. So they're up. Just looking, they're up over 20% since they signed Matt Ryan. So they've been a big mover. Browns are up 20% since signing Deshaun Watson. So whether or not, what's going to happen with his suspension and all that stuff, the investors in the market they sure like a Browns team with Deshaun Watson on it.
Are there any like really shocking ones to you?
Yeah, a few. So the Bengals one last year was crazy because they were bottom 5 in the NFL at like $18, $19 a share. And then they just blew up over the offseason. They went from like $20 a share to over $60 a share. They've come back a little bit since then. But for whatever reason, there's a premonition of people liking the Joe Burrow experience, I guess, the Joe Cool experience.
So wasn't Joe Burrow the reason you kind of got into this also?
Absolutely. So that's kind of the foundation story of SimBULL. When I was a senior in college, that was like back in, I don't know, it was 2020 or so. It was the year before they drafted Joe Burrow. So it had been like the fall of 2019. And I bet on the Bengals and they were like 2-13 at the time. They were playing the Patriots. They were getting like 14.5 points. I'm like, that's a lot of points for an NFL game, like at home, like backdoor cover, like something. So I bet on the Bengals. They get beat like 35-0, just destroyed, like no chance from the start. I'm sitting there pissed and like, the Bengals stink. Why would I bet on them? I'm a moron. Like, what am I doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, God damn it, they're going to draft Joe Burrow. They're going to be good. Like, I know Joe Burrow is going to be good for the Bengals. So I started thinking there, like, there's no way for me to like make a bet that they're going to be really good 2 years from now. And that's what I wanted to do. So that's when I got started thinking about like stock market principles of like, hey, if I believe in the foundation of a company, I invest in them, right? I believe in the foundation of the Bengals with Joe Burrow. I want to invest in them. So yeah, the Joe Burrow holds a little bit, soft spot in my heart just because he helped come up with the idea. But yeah, they were on a crazy run last year in the market.
Yeah, there's no way to like invest in a team long term besides like a futures bet until now, which I think is great. I totally interrupted you. What were the surprising teams that you like were shocked by?
Yeah, so if we walked through the top 5 of the Sim NFL right now, of the NFL market, it makes a lot of sense. You're the Chiefs at 1, right? Patrick Mahomes is going to be there for 10 years. That makes a lot of sense. The Bengals, Joe Burrow, makes a lot of sense. The Browns, Deshaun Watson, Kevin Stefanski, makes a lot of sense. The 4th team in the market right now is the San Francisco 49ers. And I find that to be pretty interesting because, yes, they've been good historically with Jimmy G. They win a lot of games with Kyle Shanahan, but like Trey Lance is pretty unproven, right? And they're priced ahead of the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen, ahead of Tom Brady and the Patriots, ahead of Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. So I think the 49ers one is pretty interesting. People seem to be pretty high on either Kyle Shanahan as a coach, just knowing that he can run the ship, or Trey Lance as a prospect.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Trey Lance country right now, and I know people are like buzzing, like waiting for him to get his opportunity, yet they still haven't found, I don't think they've even gotten an offer on Jimmy G yet. So who knows? Jimmy G might be back there next year, which is just very random.
Can you believe that? Like, if you're Jimmy G, just going into a building where like you're not wanted basically at that point, that's got to be a weird environment.
Especially after bringing them to a Super Bowl and I think 2 NFC championships now. Like he really was only 1 game away from another Super Bowl. It was
and I'm not a Jimmy G fan at all. Like I don't think I'm a Packers fan, so I don't really like him just because he's
a little better
in the NFC Championship a few times. I don't think he's a good quarterback. The whole point of like he wins, like yeah, but his roster is really good. Like you stick, I bet Trey Lance. My point is, I bet Trey Lance gets you the same amount of wins as Jimmy G, plus with more upside. Yeah. But it's just got to be a weird dynamic of like Trey Lance is unproven. Jimmy G, you know what he is. He's not elite. He's not terrible. But it's interesting.
It's such a weird business. What is it about like this being in the sports business now that like excites you the most? Is it just knowing what you're talking about a little more, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's a passion of mine. Like I said, my background, I mean, I was betting on the Bengals on a Sunday afternoon when they're 21-point dogs or whatever.
I think it's safe to say you're passionate then, if that's the case.
Yeah, exactly. I love the sports industry. I'm a sports nerd at heart. Like I'm a big analytics guy. Love NFL is my favorite sport. I loved watching it. So to be able to bring it into my career and a startup company I love working on it every day, right? Getting up and being able to talk about like, hey, yeah, why are the Bengals up 30% this year? Oh, because Joe Burrow, here's principles. So I love every day looking at the market, seeing who's up, who's down. It makes everything every day interesting.
Absolutely. So I was on the website a few days ago and I noticed there was something that I have never seen before. SimBULL Teammates. Is that something you guys are still doing? And if so, what's that all about?
Yeah, we're introducing some new functionality to the website. So right now we're just a website, SimBULL.com. I'll do a quick shout out there.
Absolutely.
We are developing a mobile app, which will be great. That's going to be coming out in about a month. But Teammates is the social element of SimBULL. So one thing that we got a lot of feedback from our first users of like, hey, they love the market. They love being able to trade teams like stocks, earn money, like make long-term bets, all that stuff. But one thing they were missing is the social element, right? Sports is inherently social. Sports gambling, fantasy sports are all social elements. So we're bringing in what we call SimBULL Teammates to allow people to connect with other people on the platform. You'll be able to connect with your friends, your family, track their trades, track their win payouts, how much money they're making to see if you're a better sports investor than them. So bringing in the social element should really help spice up the market and give users a sense of community around the SimBULL market.
I think that's so cool. Me and my co-host Jared are always talking about like our records or like how we doing betting, or like we'll tell each other our bets like, oh, you backing me or not? So I think that's a really cool aspect of it, especially with like a long-term thing like that.
Yeah, and we're bringing a lot of cool features in the social element. So not just, connecting with friends and be able to track what they're doing, but also giving like a social feed. So like, hey, Tom Brady came back, Bucks are up 14% in the last hour, right? Really giving people good insights into what's going on in the NFL or in other sports in the market, because that's what really SimBULL is all about, is putting a number to news, to injuries, to trades, to people's thoughts on how good a team is going to be, right? One of the things I always like to talk about, I just think it's the funniest thing in the world. I love the NFL draft. It's like one of my favorite days of the year, just watching the 3.5 hour event.
First round, there's not many better sports days than the first round of the NFL draft.
Absolutely electric. But what I think SimBULL can really provide to the sports community is putting numbers on how people actually feel about a draft, for example. So example I always use, after the draft, you have all these analysts being like, oh, that's a B-. What the? I don't know. Sorry, I wasn't going to swear.
No, go for it if you want to. We swear all the time.
What the fuck is a B-? Like, what is a B- grade? What's an A+ grade? What does that actually mean? What SimBULL can do is provide context to, hey, last year the Bears traded up and got Justin Fields. In our market, they went up 10%. That was the most of any team during the NFL draft. So fans really like, that's an A+. They went up 10%. Packers, unfortunately, Aaron Rodgers says he doesn't want to play for the Packers anymore. They go down 15%. I would call that an F, right? Because that's actually putting numbers to what's going on, provides really interesting content around the sports community.
I think that's so great, because my biggest gripe with all of sports media is they all just speak in like those platitudes, like just meaningless things. They're just trying to like get buzzwords out. So you hear that from like ESPN, but then you go to like the local media, it's all just like, oh, A+, our team is the best ever. So I think having just the actual like black and white objective numbers behind it, I think that's so cool and so unique, because that just doesn't happen in sports media anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, I'm a numbers nerd, analytical background. That's sort of my thing. But you're exactly right. Like, you go listen to an ESPN segment and they're like, love this team, the way it's put together, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, that's great. Good opinion. Our market can tell you how fans feel about the team, which is what we all care about, right? What other people think.
Yeah, absolutely. Something you guys also do really well that I'm just really jealous about is your social media. You crush it on TikTok, and it's just you walking your dog and like giving your opinion. So do you guys have like a set social media strategy? Was that a like set decision you did, or you just kind of go for it?
Yeah. So go follow us at SimBULL Sports on TikTok. That's our biggest social media. It's actually kind of funny how it came about. So last year, we were looking to create content around, we're a startup company, so we're trying to get eyeballs. We're trying to reach new audiences. And we didn't have a huge bank account to go out and, advertise with, big time partners on ESPN or Fox or anything like that. So we were trying to figure out organic ways to grow content. TikTok had already blown up at that point, but I would say it was just starting to get mainstream for like sports content, right? Historically, it was a lot of dancing videos, funny videos, stuff like that. But sports are becoming more popular. So we started a TikTok account. I was running a business, so we didn't have a ton of time to make organic content ourselves, which is why you were helping us out with some YouTube videos. But basically, I have a dog. His name is Zuko. If you're a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Zuko,
great
named
name.
after the character. I have to walk him a couple times a day, get him outside. And I just started videoing like my reaction to stuff. I'd see news and be like, all right, what's my reaction? And then I started getting into like debates on, debates, and then a lot of trivia stuff, because I'm kind of a sports trivia nerd. But it just kind of grew organically, that people liked the idea of, just coming up with a simple question like, hey, can you name all the backup quarterbacks in the NFL? Let's go through it. And no time to prep. You just have to think, like, I use those filters. When the filter pops up, like, can you name the backup quarterback for the Lions right now? Right. And just like really fun, engaging content like that. So it's grown, quite a bit over the last year. I'm by no means a content creator, but it's been a lot of fun to grow.
Oh, I think it's great. We'll have to set up some sort of sports trivia thing between like you, me, and my co-host Jared, because that's our biggest thing too. We're like, what are we going to do with all this just random information? Like, I think the one that really stuck out to me is you named all the quarterbacks in the league from like in like 2012 or something like that. I think it was that one. And
yeah, that was actually a comment from a viewer. So I was like, can you name all the backup? Or I think the first one I did was like, can you name the college of every NFL quarterback? Which is pretty ezy, right? Mainstream for the most part. Somebody in the comments,
we think it's mainstream. I think no one else think it's mainstream.
Well, yeah, for diehard sports fans,
yeah, definitely.
But someone in the comments was like, can you name all the quarterbacks from the starting quarterbacks in 2015? I'm like, oh, that's kind of a fun exercise. So I'm walking my dog, I'm filming, I'm like, who is the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals? And I said like John Skelton, some like random name. Turns out it was freaking Carson Palmer. I'm like, oh my gosh, like what a bad miss on my part. The Arizona Cardinals actually responded to that video and they're like, dude, what's going on? I'm like, That's pretty cool. That was kind of fun.
Yeah, the NFL teams do a really good job of being on TikTok. The Lions comment on like my Restore the
Oh my
Roar
gosh.
series all the time. It's a really good time. But
Yep.
yeah, just I think that aspect of like knowing just the most random sports knowledge and just like what am I going to do with this information moving forward, and you
Well,
found some way to like turn it into something. I think that's really cool.
I saw you guys. I saw a few clips of you guys on TikTok. I think you guys were naming backup quarterbacks in the NFL. Maybe that was a segment you guys were doing.
Mhm.
But I was just thinking about that. Like back when I was in college, you'd go out to a bar, you'd have a couple of beers with friends, and you just start like naming like, hey, can you name a player from Oregon State?
Yeah.
Just like random like guy stuff talking about college football in the NFL. So I think the content's really engaging because like that's what I do with friends is like, who was the last quarterback to be drafted out of TCU? Like Andy Dalton. Like, all right, cool. Yeah. Like, just random stuff like that.
It gets your brain going. Me and my friend from high school, since high school, we've just had this debate where we just try and name backup quarterbacks whenever we see each other. And it usually ends with one of us getting frustrated because we just can't think of one once we're down to like the John David Booties of the world and stuff like that.
Yeah, we'll have to team up with some content on our TikTok, doing a little trivia challenge, SimBULL versus Goose Egg.
That would be dope. Have you guys been plugged into like the trading card or like NFT space at all? Or are you pretty focused on just the market? Because I see that's like kind of the other space where I see a lot of like long-term sports investing.
Yeah, great question. That's actually one of the things we're working on right now. So the long-term goal of our platform, right now we're just a normal website, a normal app that we're developing. But a long-term strategy is to turn every share in our market into an NFT and utilize blockchain technology to increase transparency, liquidity, investment opportunity for people all over the world. So it is in the works. Nothing concrete yet. No launch date or anything like that. But pretty soon our market will be utilizing NFT and blockchain technology.
That's dope. I feel like you hear just like the buzzwords going around, but you see so few people actually like going out and executing them. So I think that's really cool. You guys are hopping on that.
Well, and what we're excited about with the industry right now, everyone's getting into NFTs, right? Everybody's releasing an NFT. It's like the cool thing to do, the fad thing to do. The problem is a lot of the NFTs being released don't have any utility. Like, yeah, they might have some value because people decide like, oh, that's a cool picture. I want to own that picture, right? Like CryptoPunks and all that stuff. So there's some value there of just like being able to trade the NFTs and stuff like that. But there's really no inherent utility to them. You can't do anything with it other than make your profile picture, say that you own it. What we're really excited about with SimBULL in the Web3 space and the NFT space is providing real actual utility in the form of a market where you can profit off your sports knowledge. So there's actually something backing, the NFTs, right? If you own a share of the Steelers in our market, every time they win, you earn cash, right? That's one of the fundamentals of SimBULL and how it works. So what we're excited about going into the blockchain space is providing a market that has real underlying value where people can come in and trade and actually profit off their sports knowledge.
That's really cool. I'm really excited to hear how that goes. Have you noticed any like real strategies people have when they're like first entering the SimBULL market? Like, are people usually just buying their local teams? Because I own Sim Panthers and Sim Hornets, and that's just because I was living in Carolina at the time. But is there any strategies you're noticing people have like when they first enter?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two ways to make money on the SimBULL market. First is win payouts. So every time a team you own wins, you earn cash, right? That's the basis of the market. That's why you'd want to own one team versus another, right? The more wins your team gets, the more money you're going to earn. The second side of it is the stock market side, the whole buy low and sell high. Those are the two ways to make money in the market. The buy low and sell high is also a way to lose money if you buy high and sell low. So there's two main strategies that I think have been the most effective for people moving forward. One of them is kind of the Buffalo Bills and Cincinnati Bengals example. Finding a team that has a promising young quarterback who might not be top 10 in the SimBULL market, buying them low. And if that quarterback continues to develop like Joe Burrow did, they become a top 5 team instantly. Because one thing about our market, you talked about the long-term aspect of it. If you have a young quarterback who's going to be around for the next 10 to 15 years, that's an easy way to make sure that your share is going to hold value over time. So that's one strategy that people are looking for of, hey, I'm going to buy the Cincinnati Bengals low because I believe in Joe Burrow. I'm going to buy the Bills low because I believe in Josh Allen and his ability to be down there for a long time. Now, that strategy is a little bit out the window because those are top 5 teams in the NFL now. But that strategy still holds, right? If you believe in Justin Fields over Zach Wilson, or if you believe in Trevor Lawrence over Justin Fields, those are bottom 5 teams in the NFL right now. So if you buy one of them, Trevor Lawrence becomes a top 10 quarterback, they're going to shoot up the rankings. So that's one strategy that we've seen work really well for people. The other is looking at the organizations themselves, right? Looking at the Steelers. Steelers, what's the sad? They haven't had a losing season since like 2003.
I don't think since Tomlin's been there at least.
Yeah. So at least 15 to 20 years, they haven't had a losing season. So some people look at the organization and say, hey, that's a well-run organization. I don't care if the Steelers are uncertain at quarterback with Trubisky. I trust Tomlin and the Steelers front office to be competitive for a long time, right? Same with sort of the Packers. Some of these franchises have been good for a long time. Where the question marks come around, and for a team like the Cardinals, right? The Cardinals, Kyler Murray could be a top 5, top 10 quarterback, but they're not priced like that in the NFL market on SimBULL because the Cardinals historically have struggled to maintain a long period of success. So those are a couple different strategies. People looking at sort of the up and coming young teams with the quarterbacks, or looking for really stable franchises to put their money.
Yeah, I think that's really smart. I got 2 more for you. What do you think the future looks like for SimBULL? Are there like I know you mentioned the card and NFT space and teammates. Is there anything else you're kind of like keeping an eye on, or are you just kind of full steam ahead on what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the near future, mobile app, that's going to be really exciting. It's going to be a big launch for that. The social aspect, being able to connect with teammates, compete, track each other's portfolios, compete there. We're also launching some free-to-play games, which are really exciting. We did like a March Madness challenge. We're going to do some daily games I can't announce yet, but we're really excited about a daily game. It's similar to something that's been viral recently. That'll be the hint. But hopefully that's coming out in the next couple of weeks. So free-to-play games will be exciting. But also the market itself, right? Establishing more sports. So like college basketball will be a big one, European soccer, MLS, women's sports as well, women's college basketball. So the opportunities are pretty endless for our market. And then long-term down the road, this is, maybe a 2 to 5 year plan, but individual players, right? Fantasy football is extremely popular, which is awesome, but there's really no way to invest in players in the long term. So introducing individual players to our market could be exciting as well.
That's interesting. I didn't even think of that. That's really smart. All right. And then since you're our first ever guest, I'm starting this tradition with you, but I'm going to ask every guest from now on, what is your hottest sports take, maybe most controversial, whatever, and back it up?
Oh, that's a good question. People in my TikTok comments are all over me for this one. Okay. I'm going to preface this before we go for the hot take. Okay. I'm a Packers fan. I've been blessed with an elite quarterback for a long time, right?
It's been a good fan. 2 decades.
Yeah, I've been a pretty spoiled fan. I live in Minnesota right now, so I'm surrounded by Vikings fans. I do not think that Kirk Cousins is a top 15 quarterback relative to how much he's being paid. So I know that's kind of a dorky answer. Whenever I say Kirk Cousins is not a top 15 quarterback, people in the comments absolutely roast me. They say, well, look at his stats. He's top 5 in passer rating, top 5 in yards, top 5 in blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that's all fine and dandy, but it has to be relative to how much he's being paid. He's being paid as a top 5 cap hit. He can't be average. He can't be 8-8. So I can't stand Kirk Cousins. I don't think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he'll ever win playoff games. I don't think he'll win a Super Bowl, but I think he's a bottom 15 quarterback in the NFL relative to how much he's being paid. Now, if he was on a rookie deal, he'd be unbelievably good. That'd be an absolute steal. But if he's making $45 million, he's not a top 15 quarterback.
So basically, he's like the least valuable quarterback out there.
Exactly. That's a great way of putting it.
He's the LVP. He's the LVP of the league.
The LVP is the least valuable quarterback in the NFL. I'd rather have anyone else at a cheaper cost than Kirk Cousins at his current value.
I don't hate that. I'm surrounded by Vikings fans at this office. I might steal that one when I go downstairs here.
He's not a bad quarterback. He's a terrible value.
Yeah, I like that a lot because I don't think people can argue with that one too much. All right, well, thanks so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. I will definitely keep in touch with you about some sort of trivia thing. I think that'd be a lot of fun. And for people who are interested in getting into SimBULL, like, what's the move? How do they do it?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, Matt. This has been great. Website, www.simbull.com. You can go desktop, you can go mobile. If you sign up right now, we have a $10 free giveaway going on. So as soon as you sign up, you'll get $10 in your account. You can go buy your first team for free, basically, on us, just to get tested in the market. Completely risk-free. $10 will be in there as soon as you sign up. So that's simbull.com. Go check that out. At SimBULL Sports on TikTok, at SimBULL Sports on Twitter. We're pretty active on social. So if you want to learn more about the market, our DMs are open. Feel free to reach out on Twitter, on TikTok. And yeah, I'm really excited about creating some content with you guys. I think the sports trivia segment could be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Matt. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.